Hi everybody, this is Andrea from the Town of Wytheville Department of Museums, and we are here for another virtual learning experience. And today we are back in the cabin at the Homestead Museum here in Wytheville, and we're going to be showing you a little bit of hearth cooking today. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you a lot of the different tools that we use for hearth cooking, and we're actually going to cook some food today, and you'll be able to see how it turns out when we're all done. So, you see the hearth going behind me. We've got a fire going here, and that's something that would have been going almost all the time in homes of the early settlers here in Southwest Virginia. If the fire wasn't going for any reason, they would have been sure to leave some hot coals in the fireplace so that they could easily start another fire when they needed one. And the fire was used for cooking, which we're going to see today. It was also used as a source of heat and light when those things were needed. So the hearth, the fireplace here were pretty central parts for the families and people who were living here in Southwest Virginia when it was first settled. So some of the different ways that they would have done their cooking I want to show you today. So the first one I want to start with here is our tin kitchen or reflecting oven. And this is a really neat little thing that was used for cooking meat. And I'm going to turn it around here. You can see I've got a little ham there set up on the spit inside. And so this iron spit goes straight through, and there's little notches here so that we can turn the spit and lock it in different positions so that the ham will cook all the way through. And what's really neat about the reflecting oven is that when you place it up towards the fire, which I'm going to do in just a minute here, the meat inside is going to get heated up, of course, because it's directly facing the fire. But see how this tin is a real shiny surface? The heat from the fire is actually going to go through here, and it's going to bounce off the back and reflect back onto the meat. So it's actually going to get heated from both sides. So that's a really neat way of cooking. It's got a little door in the back here that opens up so that I can access from the back. So this will be facing the fire. I can access it from the back. I can scoop up any juices that have fallen down to the bottom and baste the meat. So this is how the reflecting oven works. So let's go ahead and get this propped right up towards the fire. So we're just going to put it right up there so it gets nice and cozy as the fire is going. So you can see that there's the fire going inside, and over top of the fire there's a crane, and that's basically a swinging arm that we're going to use to cook some applesauce. And then out in front of the hearth there's a lot of stone, and all of this can be used for cooking surface. So it's not just the fire itself and things that we can hang over the fire that we can use. So I'm going to show you how to do that too when we make some biscuits. So let's come over here, and we're going to get the applesauce ready to go. I've done a lot of the preparation already. So we're going to use one of our Dutch ovens here. So inside the Dutch oven, I've got some sliced apples and some cinnamon, and I'm going to give that a good stir. Also a little bit of water. Now, at the time when the early settlers were here, this time of year, they could have still been using fresh apples that they stored in their cellar or in a cool, dry place over the winter. They could still use those and slice those up. Or they could also use dried apples to make applesauce, which they would have had sliced and dried over the winter. And then adding some liquid to it will bring the moisture back and cook it into applesauce. So I'm also going to add some nutmeg. So I've got just a whole nutmeg here and a tin nutmeg grater, and I'm going to shave some nutmeg into our applesauce. I like a lot of nutmeg, so. Alright, so I'm going to give this another good stir here. And we're going to hang this directly over the fire. Hanging something directly over the fire is really good if you want to simmer or boil something, which is what we want to do with our applesauce here. So all of these apple slices are going to cook down, and they're going to mix with the water and everything, and then we'll mash it up a little bit when it's all done to get our applesauce. So we'll put this lid on here. I'm I'm gonna use this, I've got a nice long hook here, and when we use the crane, we can either hang something directly from the crane with the handle, or we can also use an assortment of different hooks. Got some over here. So we've got some hooks that are different lengths. So if you want something to hang higher up so it's not as close to the fire, or if you want something to hang lower, you can add the hooks together. Our hearth here is not extremely tall, so we won't really need to use hooks together where we're adding the length. You can also use, this is called a trammel hook, and it's a 2-piece hook, and it has different notches or levels that you can use to make the hook longer or shorter. So you can use this instead of using multiple hooks together. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hang this Dutch oven directly on the crane. And I'm going to use this to pull the crane out. That crane is sitting right there over the fire, so it's pretty hot. A lot of the tools that you'll see me using today have nice long handles on them so that we don't have to get super close to the fire. This crane has some notches on it, which will be perfect for hanging the handle of the Dutch oven. Get right there in the middle, and then I'm going to use the hook again to push the crane back over the fire. And we're going to get that applesauce simmering there over the fire. Now you'll see that the Dutch oven also has little feet on the bottom, and that's what we're going to use. A different Dutch oven, I'm going to show you what that's for. But the Dutch oven has a lot of different purposes that you can use it for. You can hang it directly over the fire like that, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to use it to make some biscuits. So up here on the table, I've got my biscuit dough already rolled out, and this is a Pennsylvania Dutch biscuit recipe that uses flour, baking powder, salt, lard, and milk. And I've got the dough already rolled out here, and I'm going to use just a little cup to cut our biscuits. So I'm just going to take a nice little cut there. I'm going to place them in this little pie plate right here. Now it's not going to fit as many biscuits as we'd probably like to cook at once, but that's one of the challenges of cooking over an open hearth, is we don't have a big fancy modern oven that we can use and cook as many biscuits as we want at one time. So I'm just going to put these here in the pie plate, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you back over to the hearth and show you how to use this Dutch oven in a different way. So I'm going to move it out of the way first. And again, you see it's got the feet on the bottom. That's going to keep it up off of the ground. So in addition to using the actual flame of the fire, as we're doing with the apples to simmer them, we can also use all these coals down here. My log fell down a little bit, so I need to move it out of the way so I can access those coals down there. There we go. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to scoop out some of these coals that are under here, and I'm going to bring them out here onto the hearth. We're going to use some of this stone area as a cooking surface. You can think of this as using the burners on a stove, depending how many coals you bring out and how hot they are. It's just like using the different burners on your stove at different temperatures. So make a nice little pile of coals here. These coals are extremely hot, so they're going to do a real good job to bake our biscuits today. Alright, so once I have my little pile of coals there, I'm going to take my Dutch oven and set it right over top of it. And then I'm going to remove the lid here. And I'm going to set my plate, my pie plate of biscuits right inside. And then put the lid back on. It's a nice tight fitting lid again. And as you can see, there's a good lip around the outside of this Dutch oven, and that is so that we can take more coals and pile them on the top. And what this does, it allows the biscuits to cook from both the top and the bottom. It's what today we would call a convection oven, where it's heated from both the top and the bottom. That's how our Dutch oven is working. I'm going to add a little more coals onto this, but you can see the idea of how it's working. Those coals are still glowing nice and orange, so they are going to cook those biscuits from the top and the bottom. And then in a little while, we're going to open up that lid and check on our biscuits and see how they cooked up. All right, we're going to go ahead and check on some of the food that we've been working on here. So we're going to check on the apples first, and they're not done yet, but I just want you to all get a little idea of how they're cooking there over the fire. I'll actually pull them out a little bit for a minute. You can see there, they're really steaming, they're simmering, they're cooking down. They smell really good too. I wish I could transport that to you through the camera. Now we're gonna go ahead and give a little look at our biscuits. So we're going to be really careful when we pull the lid off of the Dutch oven, because we don't want it to tip, because then we're going to dump all those coals that have now kind of burned down into ashes. We do not want to dump those onto our biscuits. So we're going to be real careful here. I'm using my hook on that handle on the lid. The lid and everything is just really, really hot. And I'm using the other hand here with a pot holder to keep that steady. Inside we've got our biscuits. They are really hot. So we're going to bring them on out here to the table. So we've got 3 of our biscuits are done now. So that's where we're at with our food. We're still working on the ham. We can take a little peek at the ham from the back side here. We're going to open up our little door on the back of the reflecting oven. It's actually a little bit warm, so use this to kind of take a look here and see. It's just heating up back there. We've turned it a couple times on the spit so that it's heating evenly all the way through. Close that back up to keep that heat trapped in there. And we'll be back again in a little while to talk more about everything finishing up. All right, we're back again, and we are going to go ahead and check on our apples, because I think they're pretty much ready here to come off the fire, and we're going to mash them up, and then we'll get our ham pulled away from the fire, and you can see the finished product of everything that we've been working on today. So I'm going to kind of carefully come in here and swing the crane out again. Okay, and then I'm going to use this hook right here. I'm going to lift it right off of the crane. Bring it over here to the table. Some really nice steaming apples. And this is actually the rolling pin that I use to roll out the biscuit dough. It probably looks a little bit different from a rolling pin that you're used to that has handles on the end maybe. This one's just a cylinder, but this means that I can use it for another purpose. I can actually use it to mash up the apples here. It could also be used to mash potatoes as well. So I'm just gonna kind of use the end and mash the mash the apples. With all that cinnamon and nutmeg in there, they smell really nice. Almost all of the liquid has boiled off as we've been cooking them. The apples are nice and soft, which is letting us mash them up into a sauce. It's still going to be like a chunky applesauce, so there's still going to be some bits of apple left in there. All just simmered right there over the fire in our hearth to make this delicious applesauce. some of it here into a little bowl so you can see what it looks like. A good stir. And there's our applesauce right there. Steaming hot applesauce, which is great for a little bit of a chilly day like we're having here. So there's our applesauce, all finished. All right, I'm gonna set that there right by our biscuits. And then our last thing that we're gonna do is I'm gonna pull the reflecting oven away from the fire, and so you can see the ham. It's been heating there all day. Just gonna get the cream back in. While we're over here by the fire, I didn't point out earlier that we have these two iron stands that are in the fire with some big wide feet. Those are called andirons or fire dogs, and they help us to keep our firewood elevated up off of the ground so that we can access those nice coals that are in there, and so our fire gets lots of good air to breathe, or else it won't burn very well. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull away the reflecting oven. Nice warm ham with the outside that's nice and crispy. Got a little bit of juice that's dripped down onto the bottom. So we can take this ham and slice it up. We can maybe even open up one of our biscuits and make a ham sandwich. That would have been a pretty common, something quick that people could eat for a quick meal before they either had to, maybe before bed or something like that. A lot of big meals were happening kind of in the middle of the day because it was in the middle of the workday. They needed good energy to keep going. Might have just kept a kettle of something simmering over the fire so that it would be ready to go whenever they needed to come in and take a break to refuel themselves for all the hard work that they were doing, carving out their homes here in the frontier in Southwest Virginia. So thank you so much for joining us today for the Hearth cooking experience on our virtual learning video series. And we hope that you're staying safe and healthy and learning lots while you're home right now. We'll see you later. Bye.